Imagine spending 4 years dreaming of this moment. You saved your money, you told your children, you booked your flights, you bought your ticket the morning they went on sale, sitting at your laptop at 2 in the morning, heart racing, refreshing the page. And when that confirmation email arrived, you felt something that only a football supporter truly understands. That particular combination of joy and disbelief and absolute certainty that life had just delivered something precious. And then, days before you were supposed to leave, everything collapsed. Not because of anything you did, not because of anything your family did, because of a number on a screen. Because of a form that said authorized one day and then, without warning, without explanation, said the opposite. This is happening to real people right now as the 2026 FIFA World Cup begins, and the stories behind those moments of heartbreak reveal something about this tournament that no amount of spectacular football can fully overshadow. Stay with us, because this is not a story about forms and systems. It is a story about fathers and sons, about lifelong dreams, about what it means to follow a football team to the ends of the earth. And some of what you are about to hear will genuinely move you. Let us begin in Scotland. Two brothers, Andrew and Nelson Spears, from the town of Kirkcaldy. Andrew was turning 40 years old, and for his birthday, his brother Nelson had planned something extraordinary. The two of them would travel together to Miami, to the United States, to watch Scotland compete at their first World Cup in nearly 3 decades. A 10,000-pound trip, flights, hotels, tickets, a celebration of football and brotherhood wrapped into one unforgettable fortnight. They applied for their travel authorization back in December. It was approved the following day. For 6 months, that approval sat in their accounts, confirmed, valid, real. They planned around it. They paid for everything around it. The trip was not a dream anymore. It was a fact. And then, on the 3rd of June, 8 days before the tournament kicked off, they checked their accounts and the status had changed. No warning, no phone call, no letter. Just a quiet, devastating update, no longer authorized to travel. Nelson told journalists the news left him heartbroken. He said he did not think it was fair to authorize someone, allow them to commit financially, allow them to build their entire summer around a decision, and then reverse it without explanation. His brother Andrew was still going. Nelson was scrambling for emergency appointments, hoping to salvage what remained. And they were not alone. Dozens of Scottish supporters reported the same experience in the same week. Approved permits, quietly withdrawn. No reason given, no path forward explained. Just the sudden, brutal reality of plans already paid for becoming plans that might never happen. This is one dimension of a crisis that has quietly grown around the 2026 FIFA World Cup, one that has nothing to do with ticket prices or empty stadiums. This is the crisis of the journey itself, the crisis of getting there at all. Because for supporters from a remarkable number of the 48 competing nations, the path to a World Cup match in North America this summer has been unlike anything football fans have ever navigated before. Consider what it meant to be a fan of South Africa's national team, Bafana Bafana, in the weeks before the tournament. South Africa had qualified for the World Cup. Their players had earned the right to be on that stage. The nation was proud and excited, and then, just days before the squad was scheduled to fly to their training base, visa complications delayed their entire departure. Players, coaches, staff held in uncertainty while paperwork moved slowly through a system straining under the weight of unprecedented demand. South Africa's sports minister spoke publicly, expressing frustration at what he described as an embarrassing and unfair process. The federation apologized to their nation. Eventually, the visas came through, but the damage to preparation, to confidence, to the simple human experience of arriving at a World Cup with your head clear and your spirit ready, that could not be undone.
And then there was the case of a football referee, a match official appointed by FIFA itself to officiate at the tournament. a person selected by the world's governing body to stand in the center circle of a World Cup match. FIFA confirmed publicly that this official would be unable to fulfill his duties after being denied entry into the United States. Not a fan, not a journalist, a FIFA-appointed referee turned away. For the football community, that detail carried a weight that was difficult to describe. If the system was creating barriers even for officials FIFA itself had chosen, what did that mean for the millions of ordinary supporters who simply wanted to watch their team play? The answer, for fans from several nations, was devastating. Haiti were competing in their first World Cup in 50 years, half a century. An entire generation had grown up never seeing their national team on the grandest stage of all. And now, finally, impossibly, Haiti were there. The players had qualified, the matches were scheduled, the moment was real. But for most Haitian supporters, ordinary people who had spent years dreaming of this, the journey was simply impossible. Entry to the United States was not available to them. The players could go, the fans could not. Haiti would play their opening match against Scotland on June 13th, and the stands would contain almost no one wearing the colors of the country that had waited 50 years for this. A Senegalese supporter named Sheikh C had attended the previous World Cup in Qatar. He had traveled everywhere his team had gone, across years and continents, because following Senegal was not just a passion, it was part of who he was. He told reporters simply that Senegal had qualified for the World Cup, and therefore he absolutely had to go. He was determined to find a way. His determination was admirable, but determination could not pay a bond of up to $15,000, a financial requirement that had been attached to visitors from dozens of countries before partial exemptions were eventually created. For fans from nations where that sum represented more than a year's income, the bond was not a hurdle, it was a full stop. The president of a Senegalese women's supporters group said she was waiting, hoping that things would be sorted out in time. That particular kind of hope, patient, uncertain, depending on decisions made by people you will never meet, is one of the most painful experiences any football supporter can endure. Now let us go deeper into the travel chaos, because even for fans from nations with no restrictions whatsoever, from nations with long-standing, uncomplicated relationships with the United States, the journey to the 2026 World Cup had become something almost unrecognizably difficult. An immigration attorney based in Dallas, a city hosting multiple fixtures, told journalists plainly that some fans were simply not going to make it, that they would be left holding their tickets, unable to travel, trying to sell them on. She said that even a valid visa did not guarantee entry, that supporters could arrive at a port of entry, documents in order, only to be turned away at the final moment. For fans who had spent thousands of dollars on flights, hotels, and tickets, who had organized their entire summer around a trip that was now in jeopardy, that warning was not an abstract concern. It was a description of what was already happening to people they knew. The demand for visa appointments had, by any measure, broken the system. Millions of people from around the world had submitted ticket requests in the months before the tournament. Consular offices that process applications had no precedent for this volume. Wait times in some countries stretched not to weeks, but to many months. The FIFA Pass system, a priority scheduling tool designed to fast-track appointments for ticket holders, helped at the margins. But, as the attorney noted, an appointment is not an approval, and an approval is not guaranteed entry. Tour operators across South America, Africa, and Asia reported that large numbers of clients had quietly canceled, not because they lacked enthusiasm, not because they had lost their love for the game, but because the mathematics of the journey, the time, the cost, the uncertainty, the very real possibility of spending everything and still being turned away at the border, had made the risk impossible.
Colombia, Brazil, Morocco, Uzbekistan, Cape Verde.
Nations whose supporters have historically traveled in remarkable numbers to follow their teams, where football fandom is not a hobby, but a way of life. All reported concerns about fan turnout that were deeply unusual for a World Cup of this scale and ambition. And somewhere in that list of countries, somewhere in those statistics about visa delays and canceled bookings, were the individual stories. The father who had promised his teenage son they would go together. The group of friends who had planned this trip for 2 years. The elderly supporter attending what they had told their family would be their last World Cup. Those people are not captured in any data set. FIFA does not publish a figure for broken promises. There is no official count of the dreams that did not make it through customs. What makes this moment so difficult to process, so genuinely painful for anyone who loves this game, is the collision between what the 2026 World Cup was supposed to be and what the experience of attending it actually became for so many people. This tournament was sold from the very beginning as football's greatest celebration. 48 nations for the first time, 104 matches, 3 countries united as co-hosts. The word FIFA uses most consistently across every piece of communication is unity. Football unites the world. The World Cup is where the world comes together. And then, Scotland supporters had their travel permits withdrawn without explanation 8 days before kickoff, and South Africa's squad had to delay their departure because of paperwork. And a FIFA-appointed referee was denied entry to the country he was supposed to officiate in. And a Haitian fan watched from home as his country played their first World Cup in 50 years. The football, when it began, was real and extraordinary. It always is. The goals went in. The upsets happened. The drama of 48 nations competing under one set of rules on pitches measured to the same dimensions with the same ball and the same dream, that is something no administrative chaos can extinguish. But the story surrounding this tournament, the story of who could not get there, who was turned away, who sat at home with a ticket they could not use, will follow the 2026 World Cup through history, not as a political footnote, but as a deeply human one. Because the World Cup is not the stadiums, it is not the television contracts or the sponsorship deals or the revenue projections. It is the supporter in the stands. The noise they make, the color they bring, the journey they take, sometimes across continents, sometimes representing nations the size of small cities, sometimes carrying 60 years of a family's love for a team on their back in a bag they packed the night before. When those people cannot come, when the practical reality of attending the tournament that belongs to them becomes impossible to navigate, something essential is lost, not from the football itself, but from the feeling of it. And perhaps the question worth carrying into every remaining match of this tournament is a simple one. What would it have sounded like in those stands if everyone who had earned the right to be there had actually made it through the door?